So I am drawing Wonder Woman, arguably the greatest female superhero of all time. What I like about her is that she has a very unique and interesting origin, living a super idyllic life in that she's an immortal on Paradise Island. But when they discover that there is evil out there and she realizes they've kind of shirked their responsibility to the rest of the world, she actually decides to leave paradise and go out to bring peace. That speaks to me because there's altruism there, there's heroism, there's a choice that she had to make. She could have stayed home. Anyway, I'm talking, I'm not even thinking about what I'm drawing. Where does this drawing reside? Is it in my hands, is it in muscle memory, or is it in my head? I can give you an answer that would support both, which means I don't know exactly where it's at. The lines kind of find themselves, and that's just because I've drawn this, a lot. Once I get to this point, which is a gesture drawing, which is just sort of like the basic clay figure, which is funny because it's Wonder Woman, I then make conscious decisions about sort of bringing in shapes and correcting proportions. I kind of approach it like math. What's the distance from this point to this point? If it's in perspective slightly this way, then this point to this point is going to be longer. So you're making these kind of mental calculations. At the same time you're doing all this kind of math, it's critical to get as much energy and emotion on the paper because a lot of times people aren't going to see it. So even with this, you can see I'm sort of sketching still with the marker. I have the ability to change some of the proportions because there's black hair all around, so if I needed to and go, oh, this looks a little far out, I can kind of come in a little bit here like that. And this is very different than if I were to draw an actual Wonder Woman comic book for publication. I work just in pencil and then someone else inks it, but a lot of what I'm doing right now is I'm actually drawing with ink and moving things around. When I work with an inker, I try to put almost all the information there. I'm sure if you ask Scott, he would disagree and say this stuff comes in very loose. But I've worked with Scott now longer than anyone I've been married to, so he's really kind of like my first wife. He will not necessarily slavishly follow what I put down on paper, and he'll just kind of do his own thing. But he enhances what I do. I will draw individual strands to convey shape and motion, direction, and all that creates energy within the page. But at the same time, it's time-consuming to go ahead and do all these different strands, although you get a very nice, pleasing effect, I think. This is where any awareness or appreciation of modern art comes into play. Is you're really talking about contrast and balance, and this is black here, then where does the next line go? I'll go in with a brush because that's a lot faster, cover more ground. So I like to use this stuff. It's permanent, it's easily transportable. If you actually ink her entire hair shape black, it actually looks very flat. You have to think of the hair kind of being this mountain, and at the top of the mountain, that's where it's going to capture the light. And then as it kind of comes down the slopes, it's going to get darker. As I'm inking this drawing, a lot of the ink is coming off the brush. And now it's kind of entering what we call a dry brush state, which is great when you do sort of metal-like reflections. Sort of a Gorgon design. But things really come to life if you can go in and beef up some of the lines. Basically anything underneath the light source will have a thicker line to it. And the same thing applies here on her trunks. It's just like the hair, same thing with the shield here. It's the highest or closest to the light source, that's where the reflection is going to go. It's the highest point, it's the apex of the curve. Just a very quick down and dirty background would be some sort of smoke or cloud effect. And you just get that by basically taking a Kleenex. And this is where I'm going to use the white areas of the paper to kind of highlight and frame the drawing itself. The last step, white out marker. Each of these seams basically picks up a little bit of light.